Max Gorlin, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell from the Hawthorn Footy Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Hey friends, you got MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you are well, and it is time again to look at the brand new dual position players added to the game in Ultimate Footy. They do it at the conclusion of round 3, 6, 9, 12, and one more left to go at the end of round 15. We're talking round 12 DPP additions that are in the game right now. Talking through all of the 9 players that have picked up DPP. I got James on the line. Jimmy, how are you, my friend?
Hello, MJ. Hello, listeners. Good to be back. I feel like this might be a fairly short and sharp one.
It's not going to be the longest episode we ever do. That is for sure. 9 players have picked up a DPP in Ultimate Footy. As I said, they're in the game right now. 2 have gained back status. 6 have picked up the largely irrelevant gaining of centre. No rucks. And we do have 1 player that is now forward eligible. Here's how it works for you if you're just new to figuring out how to chase some of these players. And to be fair, there's probably only one you're really going to chase after. It's simply this. The positional changes are in game, and then depending on the settings that your commissioner in your league has set up, if they are in the player pool, they pretty much, you'll need to claim them, and as a waiver wire, like you would need to pick a player up, say on a Monday afternoon if you're trying to do that. Again, everyone leagues, the great thing about Ultimate Footy is you can be customized up the wazoo and you can do whatever you like, but most leagues kind of do that. Jimmy, let's go through them positionally. We'll spend the most time on probably the most relevant player, but let's go into that back line first. And before we talk about the most relevant game, let's talk about Chase Jones, the centre. He's now picked up back status. It's not a highly relevant game given his top score of the year is 54. But I suppose both for Crows fans and maybe for long-suffering keeper or dynasty league owners, at least he's shown something in this new role, which is positive, I suppose.
Yeah, you're clutching at straws off the bat here. I think that kind of sets up what kind of episode we're running today, mate. It's your really deep keeper league where you've got to keep a number of these kids over a number of years to have any sort of relevance. That's, I think, the only place that you're looking at him, even in a typical league, for want of a better way of putting it, where you might keep 20 out of 30. It's not likely he's sneaking in there either. So if you've got him in one of those deeper sort of drafts, good luck to you. I think it's more just an indication of how far we're scraping the barrel at this point. And look, next year it's a good sign that he's probably starting the year as a back, and that's where you think, well, if you've seen enough out of him this year, he's one that you can put a little mark in your notepad for next preseason. Yeah,
I think that's probably about as good as it kind of get for us. All right, let's talk about the most relevant gain Ultimate Footy have awarded to us out of this bunch. Adding back status, to be fair, I thought they would have given it to him at the end of the round 9 one. They've clearly wanted a little bit more data track. They got that in round 10 and round 11, with round 12 Geelong having the bye off. I'm, of course, alluding to Zach Tui. He's back taking kick-ins, and his past 4 weeks of scoring have been pretty good. Again, he was on the bye last week, but 85, 96, 85, and 109 for the 84% of coaches that have him right now. This is a fantastic gain and really does bulk out your back line nicely.
Yeah, this is one of those changes that can make a difference to a team's fortunes heading into the back half of the season. So very, very happy days if you've got him. You'd be a little miffed if you don't, and he's the only player that you might have thought relevant. But look, that's where we stand, I think, this time around. So no, happy days there.
No, I think it's the really, really big one. Interestingly, let's talk Keeper League strategy for a moment.
Yeah,
it is this kind of game because he'll have back status next year.
He should have had it this year too.
He should have had it all year.
Yeah.
But he's got it now, which is great. And astute owners that have been holding and biding their time. The good news is the past month he's been going around that 90 marker for you anyway, which is certainly rosterable and definitely at the very worst an emergency in that center line. But is this the kind of play now, if you're a TUI owner in a keeper or dynasty league and you're out of contention, this now becomes that prime time opportunity to sell him for a valuable younger asset.
Oh, absolutely. Trade value is certainly a lot higher today than it was yesterday. That's for sure. So, I think it really depends on where you see yourself in your league and whether you're able to contend, whether you expect to contend next year and you might want to keep him or not. If you, and you kind of build it around that. The other thing with Tui is the inclusions that Geelong have got coming back into their midfield now are certainly going to mean that I think that he's likely to stay back for the next little while too. So. That where he has got those kickouts and those cheap little +6s across the half-back line.
Yep.
Yeah, again, very happy if you own him.
Yeah, I think you should be too. All right, they're the two backs that we've got added to the game. There are 6 centre gains. We could probably move through them relatively quickly, but normally, Jimmy, gaining centre it gives you some squad versatility. That's the primary thing it gives you. But I think if you are playing through the buys, maybe now this is the difference between you not having to dump an option into the pool to just get a player on the field, depending on how your structure is.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, when you've got injuries to deal with or suspensions or anything else, having that squad versatility is a very handy thing. If it's not as exciting as a big name getting forward or back, but it can be a very handy thing for your particular team in the right sort of circumstance. So. No, we don't celebrate too hard, but you certainly don't knock them back. As we've discussed before too, though, the other big thing about these is where your forwards or your defenders get mid added to them. It also now means that they're not getting named at the other end of the ground if that position happens to manifest over the second half of the year. So it does rule a line through that, and for keeper players, it's something that again you look at and go, well, that may be an indication that they could be mid-only next year. So you start to weigh that up in your trading plans as well.
Which probably, when we should talk about probably one of those players while we allude to that, is the Adelaide Crow, Harry Schonberg, is now added that centre status in keeper leagues, especially probably more last year than this year. He showed some promise. He's developing okay. But that probably makes some keeper league owners a little nervy because he's been okay. And he is a second-year player. But again, you see this, as a keeper owner, you'd ideally want him to hold that forward status into next year to probably give you that real confidence he's going to make your keeper list in the off season.
Yeah, and even then, I'm not sure he was. So that's we didn't get enough straws in that first handful. We've gone clutching for more. I think that's.
I've got plenty of straws to go, my friend.
Yeah, yes. No, look. Again, deeper leagues, maybe from that point of view, and it is as much about forward planning as it is for current relevance. I think for some of these names.
Yeah. All right. Look, let's power through the rest of them. Matt Guelph, he's added centre status. To be fair, he's averaging 51, and as a back, you're not even considering it. So moving on. David Zaharakis adding centre, is forward eligible as well. Just pinged his hammy.
So you're surprised he was still on the list, to be honest.
Yeah,
there you go.
Fair enough too. Kane Turner moves into that centre line because he's playing that midfield stopper / tagger role. Has had a couple of okay games, but again, his ownership percentage in game isn't that strong anyway to really make you consider him as a target now that he's a centre too.
No, certainly doesn't make him more attractive than he was before. Again, unless you're desperately needing to fill a hole over the buys. But he's one that has shown a little bit of promise, but I don't know that he's going to take too much of a big step.
Let's just put it this way. In his last 4, he's gone 37, 24, 34, and 70. He's owned by 8% of the comp, and that feels like it's about 8% too many.
Yeah.
So jogging on past him, Will Hoskin-Elliott. Look, he's been a handy forward over the last month. I'll give him that. 3 scores over 85 in the last month, including a 113. But again, the interesting news might be about how Robert Harvey coaches this team over the back end of the year. That might be interesting, but more from what Hoskin-Elliott does as a forward option rather than as a centre.
Oh, very much so. But he has shown us before when he's got that sort of free running, wing half-forward-ish type role, he can accumulate a little bit. He's got ceiling to him. So he's not the worst player to take a punt on if he's there. He's certainly not the best player to take a punt on either. But I wouldn't I wouldn't hold it against someone taking a second look, not because he's got centre status, but just on the basis of why he's got it from playing that wing role a little bit. And as you say, he can score in that right role if it continues. And at this point, we don't know what that role is going to be.
No, we don't. Look, he's currently owned by 78% of the comp. So chances are, if you were looking at him anyway, you would have already done so. This has not done anything further for you, as most centre gainings don't, is they rarely add anything for you. Let's move to the last player before we talk about the unluckies and some guys we'd like to see certainly be an Ultimate Footy's consideration heading into the final batch of DPPs. Adding forward, Jason Johannesson. Look, in the Luke Beveridge wheel of who's going to move off the half back, JJ's lucked out. He's playing forward status. Considering he's got 2 scores of 60 plus for the year, you're looking elsewhere, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's too much of a place for him on anyone's list at this point, just quietly. But
he's actually one of the most... If you were to look through, and it's certainly something we'll do at coachespanel.tv over the next couple of weeks, is kind of the heartbreaking and the heart-making moments of your draft day. He got picked as an ADP of 136.
Yeah,
right. Now that doesn't, you go, depending on your draft team, that might only be round 11, round 12. Oh, that's not disastrous. Yeah, but that's probably about your D3, D4 territory, depending on how your draft day went.
Possibly D2 even, yeah.
Possibly even D2, you're right, knowing he's got a history of being a 90 defender, albeit back in 2016. This is one of those heartbreaking stories on draft day. You pick a bloke that you go, look, at worst, still be a mid-70s, and chances are now he's not even on your team.
No, it's as you say, it's one of those make or break kind of picks. It was a big break on that one. That unlucky for those who did, but it happens every year, doesn't it?
It does. Look, 36% of coaches are still holding on to him at the moment. So even though he was drafted on draft at 136 in 94% of leagues, a lot of coaches are completely off Jason Johannesson. And given the role and given his scoring, understandably so. And what if an injury comes and he becomes relevant? They've got 10 more halfback flankers that can still fill that role. Yeah. So it's not going to happen.
And he's not showing any sort of hesitation in throwing forwards or midfielders into that sort of role either, just quietly. So
exactly right.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk about the guys then that we think are unlucky to have missed out. I'll throw a name out and then you give me a couple. Jack Lukosius.
Yep.
Look, again, not relevant, but he's playing off the wing.
He is, or certainly was through the bulk of the first half of the season. Yeah, the last couple of rounds he's moved a little bit more to the back line, I feel, just from just casual observation.
Is that a Bose injury move more than anything else to cover that?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise at all. Yeah, it's fits the mold. So it is his natural position, I think, but he's every now and then he's still running up the field and he's kicked a couple of goals. So it's still one I think that should be on the cards for next time around, if not this time around.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
I've got the little one giving his peace of mind in the background as well.
Well, we both live in Melbourne and we're on daddy daycare in lockdown, mate. So I understand your pain at the moment.
Oh, no pain at all. He's just he's a bit miffed at this list as well. He was hoping for some more relevant players.
There was some talk that we'd see some names like Brad Hill, Nat Fyfe, even a Brandon Ellis had been mooted amongst the coaches panel community. Of potential names. Are any of those or all of those unlucky not to get it here?
I think Fyfe would have been the really interesting one of those, particularly with the injury he's got now. It just adds a little bit of spice to that sort of trade discussion as to whether you keep him, whether you trade him, and what he's worth if you do. So I think that one would have been a really good option for UF to have thrown in the mix this time around.
Yep.
Ellis, I'm still not sure is a defender so much. He does get a lot of cheap ball behind the play, but that's as much from his work rate running off the wing. So I'm in two minds about that one. I can certainly see the argument for it, but it just doesn't quite fit right for me.
Yep.
There's other youngsters, O'Halloran at the Giants, I think. We've mentioned his name a few times, I think you and I. There's a player to watch for future that isn't scoring big numbers at the minute, but he's certainly got that talent base and is playing primarily in the full line at the minute, just from the sheer number of midfielders that the Giants have got ahead of him in line there. So those are the ones that come to mind off the top of head.
I think Fife's an interesting one because I'm of the opinion that because Ultimate Footy do have a higher threshold than what Champion Data do in terms of in-season positional allocations. They're around about a 70% positional change. So it's quite a drastic move, whereas AFL via Champion Data, it's around about you need to be 35% in a secondary position to get it. So it's for that reason I'm of the opinion that Fife will be a mid-forward in 2022. But what makes it hard in keeper leagues, because at this time he doesn't have it and he won't get it now because he's injured this week. He won't play. Round 14, it's the bye round. So he's got at best, and this is if he recovers from a dislocated shoulder in time, one more game to prove he's forward eligible. So I don't think they'll give it now. So it makes his trade value in a keeper league hard because he is aging. He's only that 95 sort of guy at best through our center line now, with the odd 105, 110 popped game. If he was forward relevant, okay, now we've got a serious commodity to trade, but I don't think he'll get it until the start of positions next year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It's if it's not happening now, it'd be very hard to do it in 3 weeks' time if he's not played in that space. So it's now would have been the time to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. So like we said, you can go and read my take on these players at coachespanel.tv. Jordox is a regular part of a weekly article, which is looking at some of the player pickups that you can go and get. And if you do play the salary cap formats of the game here at the Coaches Panel, we do talk about that as well. There's articles that you can check out at coachespanel.tv. There's a weekly podcast that drops where, however you're listening to this, you can listen to that as well. And if you do love the stuff you get from the Coaches Panel, we'll give you a heap of other additional resources and content at our Patreon supporter group. All the links for that at coachespanel.tv. Hey, Jimmy, appreciate your thoughts on these brand new DPP editions.
Anytime, mate. There wasn't a whole lot to add into that one with the list we were given, but always good fun to chat. Cheers.
It's always a good excuse to talk Ultimate Footy with you. All right, that is it. The round 12 positions, they are in the game. You got one more round to come at the end of round 15. We'll be back to do it again and talk about all the brand new players that hopefully some extra relevant ones drop for us in Ultimate Footy. We'll chat to you soon.